got this strange, stupid, this comedy act, this comedian saying, how long is it going to be before AI invents entire businesses and they turn out to have like $1 billion market value in a couple of days? What? Oh, actually, no, that just happened. No, it did. Zach Abraham will tell us about this. We'll also talk about Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, now, for whatever reason, co-starring Vivek Ramaswamy. Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management, joins us, and we do this all with the good grace and help of God Almighty.
The Todd Herman Show is 100% disapproved by big pharma, technocrats, and tyrants everywhere. No. From the high mountains of free America, here's the Emerald City exile, Todd Herman.
Today is the day the Lord has made, and these are the times through which God has decided we shall live. It's Wise Counsel Day on the Todd Herman Show. That means Zach Abraham joins us. Good to see you, brother. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Man, I love it when your voice is all kind of like hoarse, and you sound kind of, I don't know, smoky and serious. Like the old man has been in the pit yelling, buy, I got buy orders over there. So...
this is a byproduct of parenting, unfortunately.
I've had those moments. Those are the moments your kids remember. Oh my gosh, I didn't know Dad could do that. My daughter once said to me, she had taken to hanging out with a friend who was a bad influence and is sadly lives a very sad life, very sad. But she had taken to this girl's attitudes. So we're sitting down for family dinner. And my wife serves some food, and my daughter says, do you expect me to eat this garbage?
Oh.
And I said, pardon me?
That went over like a lead balloon.
Yeah. She goes, do you expect me to eat this garbage? I said, your mom worked really hard on that, and you're not going to speak to my wife that way. Well, and she said this girl's name. They always have pizza. Do they? Apologize to your mother, please. And then my daughter said, don't yell at me.
Oh.
and my wife said, Dad's not yelling. And she goes, he's yelling. And then she turns to me, you're yelling. I said, would you like to hear me yell? You're yelling now. I'm warning you, would you like to hear me yell?
Yeah.
Sure. And I did, Zach, I did. And I got some pipes, man. Back in the day, I had some pipes. And her look on her face was, and then I cried it. That was me yelling. Please go to your room.
Yeah. Yeah. We let's put it this way. The boys pushed their mother one step too far last night. And it was short. It was very short, but it was powerful.
And that's where Dad steps in. And did you give him the line, that's my wife?
Oh, yeah. I don't say your mom. I always say, don't talk to my wife that way. Right. Like it hits different.
It does.
You know? Yeah. It all of a sudden, and it re-anchors them to the idea of what you're saying to her. You're indirectly saying to me.
Yeah.
And keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Right. And she might have the patience to put up with it. But if I hear it, I'm going to open up a can on you.
I lived in a home of a dear, beautiful, Jesus-driven Catholic family. And the dad there is a guy I consider a godfather. And he's a gentleman, but he was also a record-holding college running back who could smash people up.
Oh, yeah.
We're in the kitchen one day, and his oldest son had been running with bad people, making some bad chemical decisions. And in a state of chemically enhanced ego, got into his mom's face and said, you clean, you do the dishes. And she said, son, it's your turn to do the dishes. He said, did you hear me? I said, you do it, woman. And my godfather walked across the room and said, you have 1 second to apologize to my wife. 1. Boom. Knockout punch.
Dropped him like a bad habit.
Bag of cement. And my friend woke up. I mean, he was my brother's friend, my best friend's brother, woke up, became less chemically enhanced, like almost instantly. Looked up from the floor and said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Dad." And he said, "Go upstairs and I'll be up to talk to you in a bit." And on the way up, I heard him talking to his younger brother going, "Is he going to hit me again?" Sometimes
I bet he never did that again.
No.
Yeah.
And all of us, I remember going, "Oh, wow. Oh, so that's still there." All right. So enough dude talk. We got to get into this Department of Government Efficiency and then this AI invented company. So much to talk about with Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management. I will say this. If you've been injured either by being punched by your dad and dropped by a bag of wet cement, or in a horse riding injury or a car injury, and you are being told that either this is your life or you're going to have to be on some sort of oxy derivative for life, or some kind of painkiller, or a whole bunch of pharma, or you're facing surgery, can I just give you an alternative path? There was a woman who had a horrible horse riding accident, and she was hemispherically paralyzed. So one side of her body was paralyzed. And her doctors in Canada said, "You know what? Buy a new house. It's going to have to be one story because you're no longer going to go up and down stairs. You're going to be in a wheelchair." That's where she thought life was at. She heard about Renew.Healthcare in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, run by some friends of mine. They become friends through business. Last kind of shot, she flew down. They took her off the plane in a hospital bed. They brought her to Renew. And within, I think, about 3 weeks, my friend Steve Anderson, who's the managing director of Renew, he was walking through the hallway, and the lady said, "Hey, good morning, Steve." And he said, "Oh, yeah, good morning." "Wait." And she was walking. How'd that happen? By the miracle of ethically gathered stem cells from placentas and umbilical cords only. They got into her body, and they attacked the inflammation that was causing a lot of these problems, and then they rebuilt. That's what these stem cells do. They're building cells. So they can rebuild muscle, tendon, they can rebuild tissue, they can rebuild cartilage. That woman walked out of that hospital and didn't have to change her house or anything. If that's a traumatic incident, this can also work for you. Just go to renew.healthcare. It's RENUE.healthcare. Elevate your quality of life by getting actual healthcare. Zach, the Trump administration is doing some very smart things. This is forthepeople.com. And let's just give credit where credit's due. President Obama's team had set up this petition thing where you could go and create a petition, policies that should be back. President Trump has this as well. But this is on 5 key areas: health for the people, liberty for the people, peace for the people, economy for the people, food for the people. You've looked at this. I mean, as a guy who's a fiduciary over my money and that of many other people, A, what do you think of the idea? And B, what would you be saying about this stuff?
I love it. And people are so, I saw a Twitter post the other day where somebody said, and it was posted respectfully. It was looking for answers, but it said something along the lines, okay, so for all of you people that voted for Trump and are supporting these policies, why is it that you don't seem to have any fears about the elimination of the Department of Education and how that will negatively impact kids with learning disabilities or something like that? And it was a respectful, honest question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of hit me at that point. I was like, man, we got a lot of work to do. Like, first of all, the Department of Education has absolutely zero to do with the interaction between your teacher and your child on an ongoing basis. And moreover, when you look at how it was such a ridiculous, and I'm kind of using this as a panacea, or not really a panacea, but I'm using this as a broader explanation or a broader characterization to describe what I think is the issue with so many of these departments, right? Where, if you think about it, maybe at the very least you should have a very small panel of people that decide what national standards are, and then leave it up to the education system in that state that is dealing in that community, that understands the unique abilities or disabilities and all the things of that locale, right? That zip code, make it local, right? And you don't need the Department of Education. If the Department of Education works so well, why is it that we're the number one so we pay more per student than any other country on the face of the earth, and yet our test results are 31 in the world and dropping like a rock, right? If the Department of Education was good at what they did, that wouldn't be the dynamic, right? So, I think we need to educate people to realize that no, guys, we're not cutting services, we're delivering them.
Yep.
Okay. We're just getting rid of the waste and the bureaucracy that has mucked this whole thing up. And the education system is ground zero for that. It's a perfect place to start. Why does it malfunction? Because it wasn't made or designed for the benefit of students. It was made for the benefit and pleasure of the teachers union.
Exactly.
That's what controls it. So I love the concept. I think that there is unbelievable amounts of waste and inefficiency, and I am cheering it on. My only fear is that I get overexcited and expect too much out of it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they've talked about eliminating 60, 70% of government spending. That ain't gonna happen. Okay. But man, I mean, in my opinion, I don't think that there is much more of a clear and present danger to democracy today outside of the push against the freedom of speech than is embodied by the regulatory system in this country. They have this godlike power that is not legal, that is not constitutional, and that whole apparatus needs to get ripped down and redone.
Agreed. And Jimmy Carter was the guy who put together the Department of Education, so it's relatively recent. And yes, you're right. He did this to pay off to the unions. And it is a job protection, salary protection, retirement protection racket. And that's been its goal. That's why it exists. I say, okay, national standards, fine. That can be done through Congress. And they should be slimline and really, really focused on, hey, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And if you want to make some focuses for areas we need in the economy, fine. But we don't need a Department of Education because guess what? There's a Department of Education in this state. And guess what? There's a district state, like in your state of Washington. Do you know that you pay intermediaries to go to meetings?
No.
This is true. You have a job description. Each district pays people to go to meetings in Olympia. So their job is to go to Olympia, your capital, hear things, and come back and tell people what they heard.
That's efficiency, man.
Right. And there are these things called Zoom meetings like we're doing right now remotely. Here's my thing. If I were to go through this, and education for the people is not on here. That's more of a government efficiency thing. If I look at health for the people, liberty for the people, peace for the people, food for the people, economy for the people. Here's my thing on health for the people. Want to make a revolutionary step? All health procedures have published prices.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much is that rotator cuff surgery?
Yeah.
Oh, we can't tell you because it could differ. Okay, so what's the variance? Oh, we can't tell you. It could be 10 or 15%. Okay. How is it that I can go into an auto mechanic and say, I need to have an engine replaced? What's that going to cost? Well, there's a 5 to 10% differential giving on some difficulties and parts. And so you might have some areas that need extra help. So it'll cost you $5,000 or $4,500 to $5,500. Okay, fair enough. All right, I'll sign that. That's great. I'll sign off on that. But you go into the hospital for a procedure, they'll say, here's the down payment, but they don't advertise it. They don't put out, you can't comparison shop. You should be able to comparison shop all of these things. And let's bring back this. Let's bring back catastrophic insurance, which was outlawed through Obamacare. So you want a high deductible, and you got that. That should, and so that you don't need to pay, these $800, $900 a month things. That's actually insurance in case something bad happens, and then get government hands off everything else. You want to pay subscription medicine, write that off. And I think that health-based decisions such as subscription medicine, that is subscription doctors, $250 a month, so you can see the doctor whenever you want. Why on earth do I need to pay taxes on that? Why do I need to pay a tax on something that is designed simply to make sure that I remain healthy? Because the end result of not remaining healthy is look at Medicare and Medicaid and where they're at. And that would be kind of where I would start with health for people. I would also very much start, and I would concentrate on this. Why on earth do we allow the government schools to program kids to eat simple sugars and fats as their sole source of foods? Like, change that around. That's some of my ideas. And that impacts industry, and I don't care. I mean, government and businesses can adapt to that. What do you think?
No, I'm with you 100%. The other one that I would make a change to is medical malpractice, meaning you look, and whenever we're having a conversation about these kinds of things, it kind of reminds me of a conversation about taxes, meaning, listen, let's be adults and acknowledge that there is going to be no painless solution, right? But bottom line is medical malpractice is doing two very important things that are deleterious to all of us, and that are negatively impactful to our government or our finances. And then most importantly, are negatively impactful to the quality of care we get. And that is because, and you can see it in the stats, okay? As the cost of medical malpractice insurance has increased, compensation for doctors, by and large, especially surgeons, has decreased, okay? So wouldn't you know it, the number of people that are trying to be surgeons or doctors has plummeted as a percentage of the population, right? So by and large, by rule, we are getting less and less of the talented people and otherwise would be higher earners, okay? So we all suffer from that. We don't have our best and brightest in the medical industry. The other thing is that you cannot put, we as taxpayers are paying the burden anyway, right? Through exorbitantly higher medical costs. And you need to like make a multi-tiered system, whereas if something is gross negligence, like a doctor was high or drunk or something like that, that should be one category. But, you know, like a doctor will try something, and I've talked to several surgeons about this and have a few as clients, where they're like, you know, there's a lot of times where there's something kind of controversial or new that we could try in a scenario where we don't think the person has any other hope. And they're like, Zach, we won't do it. Because if it doesn't work, then we get blamed for that. Whereas if we just sort of let them die, he goes, our whole career isn't threatened.
Yeah.
And he goes, so what are you supposed to do? Right.
Right.
So you got to get a hold of the malpractice situation in this country. Meaning, look, man, I value human life immensely. But if a guy dies because a mistake was made or something was tried and it didn't work or something like that, it doesn't mean that his family should get 30 times his annual wages, you know, or 100 times his annual wages. It just, because we all just end up paying that expense.
Yeah, I got you. And I'd only provide this pushback, that the number one cause of death right now for people who visit the hospital is physician error.
Right.
Okay. So
right.
you just said in the case of death, right? But I agree, there need to be some reasonable limits on this. 30 times someone's earnings per year, no. Or lifetime earnings, no, because now you've won the lottery. A replacement of that. But I would also say this, that in terms of health for the people, you know my view on big pharma and how they own everything and how they're simply not our friends. I would say to big pharma, if you're providing a drug, any drug has to have an addiction scale on it. Anything you give anybody, you need to disclose on the packaging. And we need to develop an addiction scale. This is a 10 for addiction, and you have to tell people this. The likelihood of you ever getting off this drug is very low. And to doctors who prescribe it, if you prescribe it and they come back and say, I want off this drug, you will publish your prices in advance for helping them get off that drug step by step by step. And here's what I mean to do here. It's not to tie their hands, not to set up more malpractice stuff, but to have a doctor think really long and hard. Do I want to take on the job of getting a 16-year-old off of an antidepressant and anti-anxiety drug cocktail I've given them? Or would I maybe rather look into sunshine and exercise and things, maybe even caffeine, which I use to manage depression, things like that? And I think that could be a right sizing of the economy for health, right? And if you focus on that, we'll get to some of these other things with Zach Abraham, including got to talk about this company. It's a specific industry, very specific, kind of a new industry that's been set up by AI. We'll talk about this with Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management. I got a note from John, who runs Allen's Soaps for his son. If you're new to the show, Allen's has been a longtime partner of ours. They frankly couldn't afford an ad on this cast. So it's something we do in a developmental sense to help them, and we're committed to it, and we love it. Allen had his 14th birthday 2 days ago. Oh, well, and he's deeply appreciative for all the birthday wishes. He also wants you to know this, and John wants you to know this. If this is the reason you buy the soap, so be it. But John doesn't want you to buy it just to celebrate Alan's birthday. He wants to hear from you what you think of this soap. It is made in America. It's all natural. It's made by a family of 3 generations of soap making expertise. And just picture this at Thanksgiving dinner. People go into your bathroom. They use the liquid version called Ian's Blend, named after Alan's brother Ian, both of whom are very impacted by autism. That's the role of Alan's, is to employ people like this, kids who need work, young people who need work. The conversation that ensues. At Christmas time, imagine giving people a subscription to Alan's soap so they become habituated with it. Give them the story of Alan, that he was supposed to die. He didn't. God had a mission for him. And now 3 young people work there rather than having been aborted. Go to alansoaps.com/Todd. That's alansoaps.com/Todd. Talking with Zach Abraham about this, forthepeople.com. President Trump's team has put this together. So the big one, Zach, and this is a big umbrella question for you, is top right hand for them is economy for the people. So what does that mean in your mind, economy for the people? I've got my ideas. I think President Trump has his, obviously lowering prices, lowering inflation. But if he were to bring you in here as one of the experts to invest, to involve yourself in economy for the people, what would you say to the president aside from bring back Trump steaks?
Well, I think one of the things that he's approaching, or that he's discussed at length, and he addressed actually in his first term, is predatory practices of other countries, meaning setting up either via tariffs or new trade agreements, preferentially new trade agreements, right? Like people need to understand, when Trump's sitting there talking about "I love tariffs," it's a beautiful word. He's talking in the context of there's nobody that wants tariffs. Okay, tariffs don't benefit anybody per se. What they do, and like we've talked about a lot, is they level the playing field. Meaning, what you would prefer to have, like I said, is free trade. But free trade assumes that both parties are acting according to the same standards and the same rules, right? And so, number one, you need to address, like I said, which he's doing and which he's done. You need to address things that enable corporations to export jobs. Now, look, they should be able to do that. Okay, if a corporation wants to move its production facilities to China, it should be able to do that. But there should be a cost. Okay. Bottom line, and not even really look at it like a cost. We just say, hey, we're not punishing you. We're just going to give you a bonus if you make it here. Right? We're going to provide you an incentive to make it here. And what is that incentive? You won't get tariffed, right? So you absolutely have to do that. I would like to see them. I would love to see them make educational expenses tax deductible. I think that would be a huge help to the economy. I would like them to see them address the student loan issue. How? I think that can make it. What you have to do is you have to, as crazy as it, well, maybe hopefully it doesn't sound crazy. You have to slow down the amount of loans and money that are going to institutions.
Totally agree.
Going to colleges.
Oh, they don't need the money. They can do their own loans. They can carry their own paper. They on the float alone, these guys can put people through college for free. It's the biggest scam in the world.
It really is. It's when you're talking about endowments in excess of $50 billion, and the proceeds from that endowment are considered are non-taxable because it's a non-for-profit. Well, if that's the case, then why are you taking so much federal spending?
Right.
You have your endowment just via non-risk U.S. government loans can spit off over $2.5 to $3 billion a year in interest. How much tuition and teacher salaries does that pay for?
All of them.
All of them. Right. So the whole thing is a racket, and all they're doing is wasting that money, using that money to have worthless degrees that enslave kids in financial bondage. The other thing is I would also like to, now I don't think they'll do this immediately, and this is going to be a much bigger issue, but I would also like to see them, the immigration, look at dealing with immigration will be an assist to the economy. All of these things they're talking about is going to make, all of these things are beneficial. And, it's not that long ago that virtually everything they were talking about would be considered nonpartisan.
Agreed.
right? These are not wild things.
No, and my big fantasy gets, and we've talked about this before, is the fair tax, the actual official fair tax. And there's members of Congress that back that. That's a consumption tax that I think it waives the first 80 grand in spending is non-taxable. And then it takes some core things like life-saving steps, et cetera. Some of the things you've talked about, education, are non-taxable consumption-based things. And we don't need to get into that because you and I've talked about it, but let me bring this up. President Trump has said that he wants a 10%, he wants to cap credit card interest at 10%. Now, that sounds very Liz Warren, very top-down, sort of progressive Democrat, to tax it at 10%. It'd be super popular with people. I do think credit card companies are deeply predatory. I think that when they're hiding 28% interest rates from people and people don't pay attention to that, and they're really predatory with the poor and with kids. Like my daughter turned 18. The day she turned 18, the credit card thing started arriving in the mail. And pre-approved, and you're pre-approved. I'm like, no, you're not pre-approved. We are. That's what you're saying is your mom and I are pre-approved. So what do you think of Trump with the floating the idea of a 10% cap on credit card interest?
Well, what I would say is let's handle it in a much more mathematical fashion.
Okay.
Meaning I'm all for the concept of the deal or the concept generally speaking, but it's a one point, like the bottom line is this. The lower you push that ceiling, the less consumer credit will be available.
Right.
Okay. Now, to a certain degree, that's good, right? Because you don't want a system where the average working guy can get a 25% payday loan, and that's 25% per month, right? In a lot of these cases. So you're looking at an annual rate in excess of 250%. Okay. So like that's absurd. And you got to ask yourself, it's where free markets, that whole free market thing comes into play, right? Where you're going, are payday loans a good thing? Maybe in some capacity, but you do need to limit that because it's a debt spiral trap, right? Like you just can't get out from underneath it. And that's why those payday loan people make so much money. So you want to have access to credit. But like I said, the beautiful thing about this is if you hooked up with several different consumer credit agencies and companies that do this, okay, and you put them together in a room and you did some basic math, maximization type equations, things like that, you could figure out where that, my feeling is it's probably somewhere in the 14 to 16% range, just looking at hard money rates and things like that, because you don't want to choke that stuff out of the system, right? If a guy wants to take a short-term, high-risk, hard money loan for 60 or 90 days at an annual percentage rate of, 25%, then, he should be able to do that. But at the same time, you don't want people getting trapped in these payday loans and things like. So my thing is, I'm all for the concept. Just do it mathematically. Let's figure out where that optimization number lies.
Yeah.
And, and this isn't new, right? We used to have usury laws on the books. They either got rid of them or moved the number up so high that it doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, I think you can do that now. I think isn't the limit at 29.9 or something like that?
I think it is, right? There is that. And then the other thing I would say is I'm big into truth in labeling. Okay, you want to go take that loan. Okay, then have the loan provider, because the Bible warns us against usury, by the way. Just so everyone remembers, don't do that to people. We had a Jubilee. You forgave debts every 7 years. When we lived godly lives, that was all very real. So if you're going to put those loans out, all I'm saying is in a paragraph, you describe how much you're going to pay. All right, so working guy, you come in, you're going to take this 25% per month loan. If you take a year to pay us back, your $2,500 loan is going to cost you $25,000.
You have to publish it.
You have to publish it, and the person has to sign. I understand that I'm not borrowing $2,500. I'm potentially paying you $25,000 to let me use $2,500. I'm going $25,000 in debt when I sign this piece of paper, right?
Yeah. Yep. The other thing you have to do on the flip side of it too is, and this is trickier in my opinion, you have to reinstitute both in our markets, financial markets, and both in this topic too. There has to be an element of caveat emptor, buyer beware, right? Like meaning You cannot regulate out stupidity, right? If people are going to do stupid things with money, trust me, as a guy that manages other people's money, you can have the conversation with them. You can warn them. I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but I had a client, super nice guy, who came in with about 1.9 million for retirement. Okay.
Yep.
He had just retired. We set up a retirement plan. I told him what he shouldn't do, what he should do, and I warned him all of the reasons why he shouldn't. Classic example of this was he thought he should go buy a bunch of physical gold. And I told him, look, you can buy this much, but don't exceed this amount. And if you buy it this way. He didn't listen to me. Long story short, within 10 months of retiring, his 1.9 million was down to about 820,000. And on top of that, he still owed about $400,000 in taxes because he didn't. So his retirement nest egg was gone. He bought collector coins for his gold instead of real ones. So when he went to go sell it back, he was 25% in the hole on his gold holdings. My point is, I literally walked through him step by step and said, do this, don't do this. Here's how we're going to do it. He decided he wanted to be the captain of his own ship, calls me 10 months later when the plane's already into the side of the mountain and wants my help. And I look at him and I go, look, I'm not trying to be vindictive. I'm not trying to prove a point, but I go, here's the only options you have. And bringing your money to me at this point isn't going to help you.
Lord God.
So you have to have that element of caveat emptor, meaning people have to know. And I think you have to be careful with regulations because I think an over-regulated economy gives people a false sense of security.
Exactly. And you can't label things clearly enough for people.
No.
And I know this goes back a little bit to the healthcare thing. And this is me being probably, I don't know, obsessive about this, but when I watch people buy, and this happened to me in a grocery store here called Yoke, super good grocery store in North Idaho. And I'm shopping, and there is a lady shopping, and I'm buying stuff, and she's buying stuff. And she looks over at me, she goes, do you lift weights and go to gyms? I go, yeah. Mm-hmm. She goes, so my son's trying to do that, and I'm trying to buy a lot of good protein for him. And what's a good source of protein? Like bread? And I said, well, bread has a little protein in it, but no, meat. Oh, well, he won't eat meat. Okay, so he's vegetarian. No, he just doesn't like the way it tastes. Okay, but what does he like for protein? Peanut butter. Okay, but that's and I'm sitting here, I realize I've jumped into like a black hole. Okay, that's a fat. Oh, yeah, I know there's fat in it, but there's protein too. No. Milk. No, so milk is not a protein. It's a carbohydrate, depending on how much and percentage. But is it just that he doesn't like the taste? Yeah, he just won't eat it. He really likes bread, and he likes cereal, and he likes milk and peanut butter and jelly. I'm sitting here with this lady. And I'm trying to be kind, and finally just said, oh, gosh, I'm sorry I have to go, and nice talking to you, and good luck with that. So I go buy my stuff. She buys her stuff. And Zach, I'm watching her leave, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, she's going home with a cart full of type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
Because her kid doesn't like meat. So, yeah, I know we got to have these clear labeling. We got to get to this AI company. This is nuts. We'll talk about this with Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management. When we're talking about things like health, I get it. I'm a little bit obsessive. I go to the gym a lot. I like being able to do things that are fun physically for me. And for me, that means things that are ruinously difficult. That's what I like. You may not be that person, but look, you do not want to live an unhealthy life. My friends Wade and Matt at Bioptimizers, they have made a career out of optimizing people's health. They started working with elite athletes because that's what they were. And then as they worked with elite athletes and they began to live life in the real world, as they retired, they looked around and said, man, a lot of people are really messed up metabolically and immunologically. Let's expand our product set. And for November, they just love the sales for Black Friday. And they've set this up based upon a 3-product stack I use every day. Magnesium Breakthrough for sleep, regularity, controlling stress. That's product one. Product two is called Masszymes. These are digestive enzymes that have been proven in a test at Berkshire International University to deliver to your body 1,200% more amino acids. They are the building block of proteins, which in turn are the building block of muscle, which is the core of health, is a good body composition with good amounts of muscle. Last thing is this, P3OM. It's a prebiotic, and most people do not have good levels of prebiotics in their systems because most people do not consume foods that produce prebiotics. These prebiotics help you digest your food so that you get more nutrition out of every bite. This 3-product stack, and here's what they do for Black Friday. Go to biooptimizers.com/Todd. Use code Todd. You'll get not 10% off. You'll get 25% off that product stack. And by doing that, you will qualify to get $100 in free gifts from the people at Biooptimizers. So you're guaranteed the 25%. You qualify for the $100 in free gifts. It's simple. Go to biooptimizers.com/Todd. Make sure you use code Todd for Black Friday. Okay, biooptimizers.com/Todd. Use code Todd. Zach, you were telling me a story. It was story time as we were getting ready to do the show. And tell the people, Zach, about a beautiful company that a lot of people say is the best company in the world, created by AI.
Yeah, so it's not really a company, but it's. I was reading through the stuff that I go through, and I caught onto this deal where apparently at some point a group of developers decided to take their AI, so what we call LLMs or large language models, right? When anybody's saying about a new AI, ChatGPT, all of these are LLMs, large language models, okay? Which really isn't AI. It's not thinking, it's learning through, basically you give these things access to the entire internet. They're reading things constantly and absorbing data and all that kind of stuff. So they put these LLMs, large language models, several of them in a chat room together and just left them there, okay, do their own thing. Well, eventually, these large language models decided to hatch the idea of creating a new cryptocurrency, launching it on a crypto exchange, and talking about it on the Twitter site that they opened up. This is no joke. This sounds like crazy talk. This is legitimate, okay? And they launched their own cryptocurrency.
They being called the machines.
Yes, and it's called GOATCS. So GOAT, like a goat, CEUS, SEUS, GOATCS Maximus is the name of their coin. And that coin, as of today, has a market capitalization price of $1 billion. And it was launched in less like a month ago, right? It is trading actively, and they've even got their own Twitter site, which, well, let me, hold on. Well, you know what? Shoot. I've got the name of the Twitter site. I'm forgetting it, but you can actually get on there and read the tweets that this large language model is posting.
We'll put it in the show notes. We'll put it in the show notes. With your help, you'll send it to us. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, GOATCS Maximus. And it was one of those deals where I'm reading through it and I'm like, I don't know whether to be intrigued, terrified, to laugh, to cry, to hide. Just what an odd time we're living in. But also, if you want to talk about, and look, I don't say this meaning that I think everything's going to plummet and collapse tomorrow, but I do think
maybe
that we are
by Saturday.
We are living in the biggest speculative bubble of all time. I mean, you have people buying things that they know are worth nothing, that serve no real purpose, that have $1 billion, right? Dogecoin at one point got up to 50 billion. Dogecoin went on a 15 or 20% ripper because Trump put out the announcement of Department of Government Efficiency, Doge. Like I have never seen so much speculative bubble-like behavior in my entire life. And it's not new. It's been going on for a while. And I will tell you, I don't, like I said, I don't think it's over. I don't think we're there quite yet, but rest assured, this will be looked at as one of the biggest bubbles in human history. And I think especially in the crypto world, right? Like I'm not saying that everything is overvalued. It's not. But especially in the crypto world, especially as it relates to AI, there is just so much hype and so much nonsense. This stuff's got to cave in on itself at some point. I mean, like, you're creating fake currencies out of thin air that are trading at $1 billion valuation. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
I am haunted by something we did in high school when you're talking about this. And I'll tell you about this in a second, because you want to talk about how insane this is. Two boys in high school who decided to wear some trench coats. And no, not school shooting things. It was 1985 when we did this. And actually, as I think back about it, I went to an insane school where there actually were a bunch of shootings. But they didn't wear trench coats. So I'll tell you about this in a second with Zach Abraham. For Thanksgiving, I talked about soap. Let me talk about wine. It's Bone Frog Cellars. You know Tim Cruikshank. He's a retired Navy SEAL. He's been on our program a bunch of times. He's a dear, dear friend. He didn't know the wine business. He knew the business of breaking people and breaking things. When he was told to do that by his government. He was also a medic attached to the SEAL teams in 3 deployments, so he knew the business of field surgery and helping people live, which is a pretty big deal. When he came home, he wanted something that would honor fallen SEALs, so he started Bone Frog First Coffee, which has done really, really well. And for Thanksgiving, you should have nothing else at your home but Bone Frog coffee. Bone Frog Cellars, you probably know less about because we haven't been talking about it until recently. Tim did the same thing. He sought out a family who had been making wine for a long time and said, I want to get into the wine business. Teach it to me. So he hung out with them. They talked to them about how great wines are made and aged and the process and how do you create a wine with personality. So what would a Bone Frog wine be? So there are 2 wines. There is a Cabernet and there's a Merlot. And he has gone through now a 2015 vintage we had at our house. And when he approached me to talk about the wines, I said, dude, you're my dear friend. I love you. And we've done business together. I'll talk about it, but I don't drink it because I don't like wine. I've had like 3 sips of beer in the past 20 years. But my friends love it. So here's the range. My daughter is brand new to wine because she's not even legally supposed to drink it. She's just on the edge of that. She loved it, said it was yummy. I've got it on video. I can prove it. All the way up to my friends Tom and Sherry, who love wine and travel, and they drink it. And Tom knows about it. He knows about the legs on the glass and this sort of aging and this sort of barrel, etc. And in the middle of that's my wife, who occasionally drinks wine. All of them loved it for different reasons. Tom because he's an aficionado, my daughter because it was yummy, and my wife because she enjoys a glass of wine from time to time. So go to bonefrogcellars.com. You get 10% off there. Of course, it says God Country Team on it. That's who Tim is. Of course, the Bone Frog is on the wine. That is the insignia of a fallen Navy SEAL. It's bonefrogcellars.com/Todd. So, Zach, back in the day, my friend and brother, Matthew, whose dad was the guy who knocked his older brother out. We talked about that at the top of the show. He and I decided to create fake value. So we went on this sociological experiment where during changes through class, we would hand an envelope to each other, kind of surreptitiously, but making sure other people saw. And we all had forced locker partners. So I would put that envelope in my locker, and I talked to my the locker partner, don't touch that. Like, do not touch that thing, period. And it started to create all this false value, and people were curious about it, and they'd notice the handoff. What are you guys doing? Oh, you don't want to know. It's really something you don't want to be involved in. No, I want to know. We got a really good thing going here, and it's making a lot of money, and I want in. Oh, look, I mean, I don't think this is the thing you want to get into. No. I mean, how much money is it making? A lot. A lot. Well, I mean, I'd like it $20. Oh, wouldn't get you anywhere near our deals. Okay, I can give you 50. What can I expect to get out of it? A lot. People started to hand us money.
How much?
Well, I'm ashamed to say that we took in probably about $2,000 before we wrapped up the sociological experiment. So we'd take the 50 someone gave us, and we'd turn around to the person who gave us 10 and go, things are good. Things are good, man. Here you go. Wow, I gave you $10. You're giving me 50 back like a week later. We didn't know what pyramid scheme meant. We didn't know what it was. We just thought, So then we'd have people coming to us. Look, I got $500, man. Look, no, it's just that's too much risk, you know. I mean,
Too rich.
right. Just, but that's going to hurt you if you lose $200. And so eventually we came around and just confessed to what we were doing. And it was this great sociological experiment, right? And so some people lost money, and frankly, we didn't keep any. We just played the game. But it showed us that all we did was create this false value. Tell me how what we did is different from this, not AI, but large language model invented crypto.
Well, look, what's funny is, and here's the tough part about this, and this is a classic example of kind of one of the dangers of AI. When I was sitting there looking at it, there was a thought that crossed my mind where I sat there and I went, wait a second. Are you telling me that this is a cryptocurrency created by a large language model? So basically, you are bisecting the most bubblish, crazy parts of our market, crypto and AI. And it's got $1 billion market cap. And I kind of thought to myself, I was like, you know what? There's a decent possibility that this is all nonsense, right? There's a decent possibility that this crypto was created by a couple of guys. This is the story that they cooked up. They're the ones. And my point in saying that is because it is exactly like what you were saying. And the guys that invented Dogecoin are proof of that, right? They came out and have admitted, yes, it was a complete joke. It was just, we never thought it would take off like this. Dogecoin got up to a $50 billion valuation, right? Like those guys cashed out with billions of dollars, even after they told everybody that, look, this was a joke, right? But everybody kept trading it. And why? Because it was going up, right? So yeah, it's, and I will warn your listeners too. Do not go buy that coin. Don't go buy any of these coins unless you really know the space and have studied it and really know what you're doing. And even then, go with the knowledge that at any moment, a market like that can go bidless. So you can go from having $3 million in your account 1 minute. And if you don't think this has happened, you haven't paid enough attention to the space. And you can literally see 99% drops in these things in less than 60 seconds. Yeah. So, and like you said, the issue is, and this is true even with Bitcoin, there is no real underlying value as we define it today, meaning there is, how low can Bitcoin go? It can go to zero. Why? It doesn't produce cash flow. So I'm not saying it will. I'm not even saying I think it will but what I'm saying is these things will have massive drops, and you know, in a lot of cases, you're betting on vapor. People have such a hunger for the easy way. Yeah. You know, yeah. Jesus told us the path is narrow, the way is long. That's spiritual. I think some of this is spiritual as well. People have holes. They want the easy way. And I won't make a big deal about this because it's one of my favorite stories, meaning I've told it 50 billion times. But the people who run Adbusters, which is a communist magazine put out by a very dangerous guy in Canada, and they did come up with some cool ideas. And one of his cool ideas was in Europe, they invented a product. His name is Kylie Layson. I forgot for a second. Kylie Layson is the guy who started that. Brilliant, deeply dangerous man. And across Europe, they purchased these beautiful billboards, Zach. And this was 20 years ago. White background, beautiful blue font. And they spent some time designing this font. They put these billboards around. Then they got street artists, and they placed these in hipster areas of town. They sponsored menus at hipster restaurants where they would pay for the menu printing for the week, and it would say in it. And here was the brand name. Nothing. And all around Europe, people would go into fragrance stores, perfume stores. Look, are you going to sell nothing? But we're trying to get our hands on it. People decided it was a fragrance, and other people decided it was lingerie. And they would go into these high-end lingerie stores. Hey, are you going to be carrying that lingerie called Nothing? It looks so cool. People were demanding nothing. And what it turned out to be was an ad for their Buy Nothing Day.
to take a day off from consumerism. And all these people were conned. And their hope was to show them we created a hunger in a product that doesn't exist. And it even said nothing. Man, if that's not how easy it is to tantallate the flesh with the easy, then nothing else shows that.
I was going to say there's certainly some spiritual and biblical parallels to that story in there.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Let's see. The father of lies comes to mind. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Always a pleasure to have you on, my brother. And I like the new background back there. I like the new voice. Yell at your kids more often, man. It brings a flavor to the show. All right. Say hi to the Blood family. We appreciate you, Zach. And gotta go with you. This is the Todd Herman Show. Please go be well and be strong and be kind. And remember that the one true value, lasting value, comes when we're attached to the vine of Christ. Did I say go be well, be strong, be kind? I did. Well, I said it again, so sue me.